Okay, I think we'll just make a start and then see if anyone else joins. So I'm Rudy Lowe and I'm the assistant archivist at 198. And I'm also a visual artist. My pronouns are they, them. So I'm just going to start sharing my screen. So yeah, since May 2020, I began working as the assistant archivist at 198 Contemporary Arts and Learning. And in this process, I have started to catalogue and digitize 198's archive alongside my colleague Eleni Perusi, who's the lead archivist. I'm just gonna close this down. Here we go. Yeah. And so, yeah, 198 received Heritage Lottery funding to make this work possible. So this is the first time in the last 30 years, basically, that there's been any kind of formal archiving for the organization. And in this presentation, I'm going to highlight a number of exhibitions by Black artists between 1990 and 2007. And these are just the dates that I have been working with the most. They're by no means a comprehensive list of all of the exhibitions that have taken place by Black artists at 198 during these times or after. It's just yeah, there's been lots and lots of Black artists who have exhibited or worked at 198 in other ways, and hopefully when 198 reopens, you'll be able to come and have a look at the archive and see the other exhibitions that have taken place for yourself. And kind of at the moment, there's lots of art as institutions, as we have seen, that are kind of scrambling to show their solidarity with Black Lives Matter. You know, there's been a lot of institutions and organizations that have, you know, put out these, you know, documents, whatever, basically about supporting Black Lives Matter, but then this isn't necessarily reflected in the way that Black artists or workers even within these arts organizations are supported, you know, and especially like now lots of people are losing their jobs. There's like higher numbers of Black workers who are in precarious positions in art organizations. And so one thing that I hope will be apparent with this talk is that 198 has been doing the work to support Black artists for over 3 decades, and that is really visible in the exhibitions and the events that have taken place. So the work kind of speaks for itself. And for the talk, I'm going to kind of just work through a chronological timeline, starting with the earliest exhibitions that I've found so far in the archives. And then at the end, we should have some time to have any questions. So feel free to kind of pop them in the chat and hopefully we'll be able to work through them. So in 1990, Jamaican artist Eugene Palmer had an exhibition at 198 titled Themes and Images. And in his artist biography, which I found in the archive, it says, Eugene Palmer's work has been called Black Classicism. His subject matter is a mixture of his own involvement with the traditions of European paintings, his place within modern debates about the nature of art and the role of African art in Cubism, along with an exploration of his own biography and family background. And so he works figuratively, and he has used his family photos as source material, as well as, you know, different kinds of religious iconography, in order to try to speak to the Black experience in a European context. And then, yeah, the next exhibition is Recent Works in 1990 again. Showed pieces by the Ghanaian artist Godfrey Donkor, and this included photo collages and paintings in the some of which are in the style of the Royal Mail stamp. rich with iconography, symbolism, and political themes. And Godfrey Donkor has gone on to have a very well-established artistic career. So it's nice to be able to see, you know, some of these kind of earlier works that, you know, maybe people would be less familiar with, and see kind of how his practice has evolved. And there's also a number of exhibitions that I'm going to mention that Godfrey Donkor curated. I think that's also what's really nice to see, that how artists have been able to take ownership over the gallery in different ways and make space for dialogues and themes that perhaps, you know, wouldn't have been possible in another gallery, that other organizations might not have taken those risks. And I think what a lot of these exhibitions that I will show you do is to challenge kind of notions of blackness or how blackness is represented. And there's so many different kind of layers and themes within these works. It's very varied. So Claudette Johnson's exhibition, Portraits from a Small Room, took place in 1995 and showed recent works she had created predominantly in pastels and gouache. As described in the press release for the exhibition, her subjects convey the artist's affinity with her cause, the struggle of the Black woman for identity and self-expression, her imagery a fusion of semi-abstraction and stylized figuration. And in the publication, Pushing Back the Boundaries, on her work, Claudette Johnson said, "I am a Black woman, and my work is concerned with making images of Black women. Sounds simple enough, but I'm not interested in portraiture or its tradition. I'm interested in giving space to Black women presence, a presence which has been distorted, hidden, and denied. I'm interested in our humanity, our feelings, and our politics, something which have been neglected." And then she goes on to say, "The Black women in my drawings are monoliths, larger than life versions of women, invisible to white eyes and naked to our own." And I think what's really great about Johnson's work is how she creates these larger than life representations of Black womanhood that are imbued with feeling, and they're unapologetic in their message. And in the press release, it talked about how she wasn't afraid to show these women dancing, flirting, oozing eroticism, masturbating, menstruating. And that's just not something that we often get to see from the perspective of a Black woman. So, you know, I think that it's really powerful. And alongside the exhibition, Portraits from a Small Room, was an educational project, A Closer Look, which matched 5 Black women artists with participating schools. And the project aimed to enable schools to approach multiculturalism in art education through a thorough understanding and investigation of the issues surrounding the work of Claudette Johnson. And so these images are from the educational publication. And in the publication, Paul Dash wrote, "Many teachers of art and design are frustrated at the lack of access to visual material that speak from a Black perspective. As such, the authentic Black British voice remains largely unheard in many art and design classrooms. This exhibition offers a wide range of possibilities for making in classrooms that should enrich children's learning." And I think that, you know, it's really important for young people to have access to different kinds of representation within arts education, you know, so that they can see themselves reflected in the work. And that's why these kind of projects are really invaluable. So In Search of a Higher Place was the UK debut solo exhibition by sculptor Raymond Watson. And Raymond Watson's subject matter was the human form, capturing dynamic movement and energy through bronze and steel. And in the press release for the exhibition, it said that Watson's search for a higher place, spanning 3 decades of commitment to creating sculptures of significance, is his quest for peace, tolerance, and unhindered ascent of all people. His work seeks to assuage the struggles, celebrate the achievements, and proffer points of view from seemingly diverse cultures to find common elements that underpin the human condition. And in his own words, he said that I journey in search for spiritual continuity and the need to build bridges between the past, present, and the future. And Raymond Watson was commissioned in 1998 by 198 to create the memorial sculpture, which you might be familiar with. It's called The First Child, and it's in Max Roach Park in Brixton. And it was a memorial to the 116 children who were murdered by the Afrikaner police in Soweto in 1976. So yeah, if you're interested, you can go and have a look at that now. So the next exhibition that I'm going to talk about, Pablo Manfasawi Amani's Black Angels. So in 1997, Black Angels was curated by Godfrey Donko, who I mentioned previously, and it used a quote from Roberta Flack as an inspiration for an exhibition of photographic portraits. And the quote was, "Why do you always paint white virgins? Paint beautiful black angels." And Black Angels questioned the nature of contemporary portraiture and self-portraiture and created modern day African icons. And so Melanie Keane, who I think now is maybe the director at Welcome, she wrote that Pablo Manfasawi Amani's current body of photographic work refutes crude binary notions of good and evil, and deals with an area which is of continual fascination to humankind, the earthbound angel, understanding angels as creators, protectors, and sources of inspiration, and not winged cherubs or virtuous seraphs. He has taken a series of photographs. These black and white portraits are of close friends who he feels have those attributes and who are black, ordinary, yet deeply spiritual. He describes his sitters as intense, passionate, and profound. And indeed, the photographs convey those characteristics. And I think these portraits are just beautiful. And there is something that feels very kind of mystical about them. And they look like, they look very timeless. And somehow he has managed to really kind of capture their spirit in the work. So, yeah. And so the next exhibition, Deep, which is by Clement Cooper. Sorry, his surname seems to have got cut off there. Deep was an exhibition, again, of photographic prints by Clement Cooper in 1997. The exhibition explored mixed race identity through portraiture. Over a period of 3 years, Clement Cooper photographed subjects from across the UK in Cardiff, Bristol, Liverpool, and Manchester. And the accompanying exhibition leaflet explained that Cooper's journey around the country was motivated by an autobiographical desire to elaborate and give voice, literally, to largely marginalized experience of mixed race people in Britain today. So the next exhibition is a group exhibition, Windrush Legacy. And this was an exhibition in 1998 that showcased Caribbean artists. And I unfortunately haven't been able, as of yet, to find out that much information about it. But the exhibition featured visual artists such as Faisal Abdullah, Eugene Palmer, Lynette Kamala, Raymond Watson, Ronald Moody, and Aubrey Williams. And the exhibition was a mix of artists who have made a major contribution to British art since World War II, which included biographical details of their arrival in Britain, alongside contemporary artists of the time. Sorry, I think I forgot to mention it's Windrush Legacy, that was the name of the exhibition. And so it coincided with an educational exhibition designed by Lambeth Library Services, documenting the arrival of the SS Empire Windrush in 1948. And the educational exhibition was then held at the 198 Education Centre. Yeah, unfortunately, I think that is it. There's only kind of a few images available. But as you'll see again, it's like there are artists who, you know, had solo shows or maybe had shows with other artists that you kind of see come up again and again, which I think is really nice. The Elders exhibition was originated by the 198 Gallery and curated by Godfrey Doncourt, and it was a major retrospective of works by two Caribbean artists, Brother Everard Brown and Stanley Greaves. And in the press release, it said that Brother Everard Brown is a painter, sculptor, musician, and self-ordained priest of the Ethiopian Orthodox Church, is an elder in the art of the Caribbean. Entirely self-taught, his work is highly spiritual in nature and often emblematic, based on rich personal iconography involving Jamaican fauna, flora, culture, and mythology. And so you can see he's the one who made this beautiful instrument. So it's decorated with flora and fauna. And on the work of Stanley Greaves, a painter, sculptor, and musician, as well as a poet and ceramicist, his work depicts his interest in the metaphysical, an area not usually associated with art practices from outside of Europe and America. And the contrasting techniques of each artist, it said, belie the interrelated similarities of their work. They share an engaging spiritual dimension, one that is rooted in African orthodoxy, a common musical heritage, and a unique perspective of the Caribbean past and present. And so, because it was, I think, quite a big exhibition, in the end, it was held at South London Gallery. So it was kind of in collaboration between 198 and South London Gallery. And so alongside the exhibition were workshops by the artists, a workshop for primary school children with Brother Everard Brown, inviting them to create their own instruments. So you can see one of the instruments that the children made here, decorated with flora and fauna. And then the second, a drawing workshop with older children by Stanley Greaves, engaging them to draw upon their own cultural backgrounds and creating visual imagery expressing their experiences as young people in London. So now we have Materialistic Gal, an exhibition by artist Lynette Kamala in 1999. And in her artist statement, it says, resistance, a factor of power play, articulates itself in various guises that can empower the individual or community to create an alternative mode of existence that runs concurrent with mainstream authoritative systems, and on occasions, its rebellious nature often manifests itself in the extreme. Materialistic Gal focused on individual power and how the contemporary urban women that Lynette portrays seek to define themselves. The desire to revel in material excess and allude to the glamorous lifestyles, real or imagined, is at their disposal through the cosmetic, fashion, body sculpture, hairstyling, and personal possessions. And one thing that I, really like about, as I said before, kind of how varied a lot of the exhibitions at 198 have been, is that, in this way, it makes space for so many different iterations of Blackness, that there is so much room for subjectivity in the work. And when I was reading the press release, I was just like, this is amazing to kind of highlight ideas around Black womanhood, consumerism, and then linking that to like Foucault as well. I just was like, that's not something that I personally have been able to see in many other spaces. And so I kind of really appreciate that, that there is that room. So Drapo Visions, again, this is one of the exhibitions that I don't have very much information on at the moment. There may be more in the archive, it's just that I haven't gone through the entire archive yet. So hopefully we'll be able to uncover more. But Drapo Visions was an exhibition, a group exhibition by Haitian artists. And the sequined drapo, which are flags, depict the worshipped Iwa, which are spirits, who are consulted during divinational rites. And reflecting society, the Iwa's iconic significance adapts itself to the contemporary social, political, and spiritual needs of its practitioners, regenerating its power irrespective of economic and geographical constraints. And this exhibition of contemporary drapo and metal sculpture, so it was organized in collaboration with Leah Gordon and Charles Arthur of the Haitian Support Group. And so, yeah, at the moment, I only have a couple of slides from the metal work that was included in the exhibition. But yeah, it seems, really incredible. And there was, again, another learning resource that accompanied the exhibition, kind of showing children like what the flags were and kind of talking through like some of the religious symbols, which I think is just incredible that that was even possible. So then the next exhibition in 2001, Barbie Asante was the second artist in residence at 198. And as part of her residency, she staged 3 performative interventions. So one placed pieces of text in private spaces in public places, so such as kind of public bathrooms or changing rooms. So it would be short phrases like this. And then for the second intervention, Asante took on the role of a wig therapy consultant at a salon. So people were, had a time slot and were invited to come in for that particular time. And then for the third, she invited participants to share stories on what makes a perfect Saturday night. And so Barbie's intention was to place the viewer at the center of the artistic process through physical interactive experiences, and her work addressed issues of how we define personal identity and self-expression through comparison, competition, and aspiration. Mudfoot was the 2001 exhibition by Reggie Pedro, the artist behind the album artwork for the band Gomez. So if you're of a particular generation, you might remember this artwork. And for me also, I remember this from when I was younger. I had no idea that Reggie Pedro was the artist behind the artwork, so it's kind of nice to put the pieces of the puzzle together. And for the exhibition guide, Asako Yokoya wrote, Reggie Pedro's paintings take as their subject matter the everyday lives of people living in modern urban environments like London. The sometimes melancholy, sometimes humorous images reflect the alienation and fragmentation that can characterize life in these places, at the same time as an ever-present optimism that shows through in little touches of humor. And I think that, it's so nice how playful the work is, that sometimes he would paint onto more conventional materials, but also onto surfaces such as this with the bottles. So there was this, I guess you could say, sculpture with these painted bottles in the middle of the room. Yeah, I just think it's wonderful. But yeah, so really sadly, Reggie Pedro passed away at the age of 35 in 2007. And so, yeah, that was, not really that long after this exhibition. And I think it's important that we kind of think about what happens when an artist passes away. How will that artist's work live on? And I think that's why projects like this, for art organizations to really try to memorialize artists in some way through the archive, I think is important, not to make sure that the artist's work doesn't get forgotten, basically. So through the Family Friends Summer Scheme, artist and educator Carol Chin led a series of workshops for children that culminated in the exhibition Carnival Connections in 2001. And Carol Chin is a Trinidadian artist whose creative practices focuses on carnival. So children were invited to participate in a mass in camp, designing their own costumes with materials which included those that Chin had brought back from Trinidad. And in reference to the exhibition, Carol Chin said, "Mass is more than masquerade. It embodies the mind, body, and spirit of all practitioners in a way that is very profound. My recent paintings draw on my own experience of Trinidad and Tobago Carnival, February 2001. And one of the reasons that I really wanted to include this exhibition in the presentation is because I am interested in the ways that we make space for joy and celebration through culture within our communities. And I think that it's really important to think about how, particularly within the Black community, how do we make space for joy and culture? So you can see some of Chin's paintings in the background, and then there was an event held for the children. So in 2002, Barbara Walker had her exhibition Private Face, and it was an exhibition of paintings, and it says Walker considered her work to be social documentary through painting. She wanted to challenge the stereotyping and misunderstanding of the African Caribbean community, and offer a sophisticated and positive alternative in a mainstream setting. And so, the focus was to show people in their natural state, just going about their daily business. But in particular, she wanted to highlight also elderly people, a group of people who she said were often invisible in today's society and who hold unique memories for the community because of their status as the first generation of people from the Caribbean to come to Britain. And I just think that there is a beautiful intimacy in these paintings, that the subjects in them, they seem so relaxed, like as the viewer, I feel like the perspective is of someone who is a member of this community, and you can really feel it. And that, many of the images represent everyday acts of care that together kind of create this beautiful portrait of Black life. Like this painting, someone just having their feet washed, there's something about it that for me feels really warming. And I think especially right now, in the context that we're in, it feels important to think about, the ways in which we can take care of each other in our communities and find different ways to support each other. So Historicism was a group exhibition in 2004 and included artists Faisal Abdullah, Rodney Bailey, Jeffrey Chambers, Henry Davis, Kimathi Donkor, Papa Essel, Rebecca Harmon, Anissa Jane, Rita Keegan, George Kelly, Cherie Mack, Nick Mensadika, Sarita Mullings, Eddie Ocherry, Reggie Pedro, Rowan Roberts, Stephen Seeley, and Taliba. And the exhibition was held as part of Black History Month, highlighting the history of Black people in the UK from 300 AD to the then present day. So the artists were working with a compiled timeline of key dates within this period of time in history, looking at Black Britain within this time period. And then artists visually interpreted an event in the medium of their choice, kind of creating this visual timeline of history, basically. And so this included Reggie Pedro's portrait of Marcus Garvey, who you can see on the right, marking the 5th Pan-African Congress, which took place in Manchester in 1945 and was attended by other well-known political activists such as CLR James, Amy Garvey, George Padmore, and Kwame Nkrumah, who then went on to be the first Prime Minister of Ghana. And then we also have Cherie Mack's portrait of Mary Seacole nursing wounded soldiers during the Crimean War. And I think that, one of the ways that many of the exhibitions at 198 have been effective is, as well as being great exhibitions, this educational element that some of them have. I think that exhibitions like this make room for important conversations and engage people in dialogues that they might not otherwise have. And I think especially making spaces like this where younger people can come and learn about history in different ways, I think is really important as well, to have these kind of spaces outside of school where we encourage different kinds of learning. Petrona Morrison's exhibition, titled South African Diary 2 in 2005, was inspired by her 2-month residency at the Bag Factory in Johannesburg in 2004. And the original press release says that she explored themes such as economic discrepancies, racial identity, and the mythologized Rainbow Nation, all viewed through the lens of an Afrocentric Black Jamaican woman returning home. And intrinsic in the exhibition are the same issues of race, identity, and power, which are relevant to the diaspora, and more particularly to the Caribbean experience. Kitchen Table's Last Threads in 2006 showcased showcased stone carvings and drawings inspired by Marcia Bennett Marley's African Caribbean food heritage. Alongside stone carvings were some embroidery pieces which reflected her long-standing mental health issues. So this is a piece of ginger, and I think these are sweet potatoes. And yeah, so this is one of the embroidery pieces. And I was really happy to find these works in the archive, because I think generally there is a gap of understanding in how mental health affects people from an intersectional perspective. And so this feels particularly important, thinking about how do we make space for a dialogue concerning the mental health of Black women. And I feel like her embroideries do that. They make space for this kind of conversation, but she does it in a way that's through humor and sensitivity kind of simultaneously. So I just thought they're really lovely. So Three Cornerstones was an exhibition by 3 artists, Chris Bramble, Papa Essel, and Emmanuel Okoro. So through ceramics, painting, and sculpture, the artists tapped into the art of storytelling and mythology. And even though the artists worked with different materials and methodologies, the focus for all of them was the same. So it was the natural, the spiritual, and the political, and how these together are the 3 cornerstones. And these works, I believe, are by Chris Bramble. And then these paintings are by Papa Essel. So Papa Essel combined text and image to explore socio-political issues such as gold mining, environmental issues, and Africa's relationship to the West. And I think what's really nice is that, even though all the artists are working in different mediums, there's a conversation between the works, that they're in dialogue with each other, that kind of creates this really nice balance. And I think that it takes a nuanced understanding of the culture to be able to put these things together and kind of understand maybe like the relationship to them. So in 2006, Thabo Jayasimi, sorry, had his exhibition Social Obligation. It was an exhibition of photography, and as described, Social Obligation, a politically charged exhibition of black and white photographs by Thabo Jayasimi, documents the social condition and contemporary concerns in today's Black British community, bringing to visibility in an eloquent language which heightens reality those dimensions of the Black experience that had been previously neglected or sidelined, vividly recording the moments of angry political confrontation, such as the Stephen Lawrence inquiry or the ban on the Nation of Islam's Furqan, but also offering quieter portraits and more understated images of ordinary daily existence. And alongside the exhibition were several events, including a Q&A session with, I'll talk about that in a second. It was a Q&A session with Dwayne Brooks, who was the best friend of Stephen Lawrence, who was with him when he was murdered. And Dwayne Brooks used his own funds to republish his record of events regarding his friendship with Stephen Lawrence and his experience of the police and legal system, and then the book was available at the event. So I think, you know, also it's really important that a community-orientated art space, you know, makes room for exhibitions such as this that are deeply political, and also like reflect that this is an artist who has really been involved in like political movements that are so thought-provoking. You know, the work is so thought-provoking and really necessary. Yeah, and then, you know, making space for events such as that with Dwayne Brooks, I think is, you know, is really important. And what I was going to say is that Thabo continues to be making this work basically, and so you might have seen this image recently in the news, which was a man urinating on this memorial for a police officer, and so it was Thabo who actually took this image. I just took it from The Guardian. Yeah, so in 2007, Admas Habteselassie had his exhibition Limbo, which documented life in Eritrea through photography, highlighting a precarious existence premised on the permanent threat of war. And as described by the artist, Limbo is a snapshot of what happens between the past and the future. And so, yeah, it was photographs, moving image, and then I believe some sound. So I wanted to also include some other artists whose work is in the archive via slides of their images or an artist folder, but who I hadn't at least yet found kind of the information as to whether they had an exhibition or when it might have happened. But I just wanted to include some of them in this presentation, also because I had never come across some of these artists before. I'd never heard of them before. So the first is Madge Spencer, and she is a potter. She's still a potter, and she makes these beautiful pieces. I think she seems kind of underrated. I read somewhere that she destroys all of the work that she doesn't like. But yeah, she's still making work. And then the next is Olayinka Bernie Nicole, who was an artist from Sierra Leone and worked across a number of different mediums, but including painting, working with textiles, and relief printmaking. The only works that I have found by her have been textile based. And then the next is Suleiman Mane. And this is an artist who I have not been able to find any information about whatsoever. There were slides of his work in the archive, but even like doing a Google search brings up nothing, but I just think that they're, you know, really beautiful pieces. And I think, you know, kind of going back to what I was saying as well about the importance of making sure that artists' work is archived. You know, some of the artists who I've looked at, they might not be practicing artists anymore. And I think that kind of makes it even more important then to make sure that their work is properly documented, that they don't just get forgotten. So this is Horace Opia-Donovan, and he was working with ceramics and sculpture, and I think that he is now working with fashion design. But yeah, so this is a bust of Marcus Garvey. And then the last artist I wanted to include is Pauline Spencer, who made these amazing ceramic pieces and sculptures. I just love them. Yeah, and so I will say that when 198 reopens, there'll be a study room so that members of the public can come and look at the archive. So far, the kinds of material that I've been working with have mostly been kind of artist files. So that includes like slides and images of artist work or different exhibitions, ephemera from exhibitions and events, publications, some press cuttings, all in very different states. Some are in great condition, some are not. But I think that, you know, this is a really important project, and it's a really important work. And yeah, I mean, I'm really happy to see this work being done. And if you're interested in future volunteering opportunities, you can email me, there's my email, and I can pass on your details. So that's it. And yeah, I think now I'll just see if there are any questions. Oh yeah, also Paula has shared the feedback form in the chat. So yeah, if you wouldn't mind filling it in, that would be great. Will you be able to get a recording of this presentation? I don't know actually. Paula, do you know if we will be able? Yes, we will. Yeah, so will it be online, Paula?
Hi everyone, sorry to jump in. I'll just say that, yeah, we are recording, and we will upload this online. And maybe Rudy as well, you could upload some bits of your presentation as well. We could get something like that together.
Yeah, sure. Yeah, if anyone is kind of interested in, seeing a list of artists, maybe we can do something like that as well. Will you be able to book visits, and when will it be open? That is a good question. When will we be open again? I know it's going to be 2021. Yeah, I don't know if you can say any more about that, either Paula or Lucy, if you want to.
Can you hear me?
Mm-hmm.
This is Lucy. We're working towards April 2021 right now. So hopefully, touch wood, that's when we'll be opening, certainly with the first exhibition and the archive room.
I just saw we have a question. It's interesting to hear about artists from the 1990s, because we often hear about 1980s as they were mostly art school educated. Were many of these artists from the mainstream art schools? I think what's really great about at least the artists that I've found so far is that it's super varied. You know, not everybody grew up in the UK. There were lots of international artists who either weren't based here, or I think had moved here, some who had moved back also. So yeah, I think, you know, that's one of the things that's really nice as well, that it's not just either Caribbean artists, also it was like lots of African artists who were really fundamental in making 198 what it is, and that, yeah, that just came from really different backgrounds. Any other questions? Yeah, so 198 is still in Herne Hill. Yeah, yeah. So it's been it's being refurbished, and the building is going to be much bigger. Yeah, which is, I think, really exciting. But yeah, it's still in the same location. Yeah, I think that there are lots of other artists that I didn't include, either because there was just not very much information at all, or it was just kind of bits and pieces. But yeah, I think that kind of I've got, I think, another 5 more months working on this project, and I imagine that there will be more artists to kind of uncover, and yeah, it's just kind of really exciting to get to see all of that, you know. And kind of the thing, I mean, for me as like a Black artist as well, is that these are not people who I learnt about in school. So I think it's really, really important that, you know, we make sure that there is a space to learn about this history, about these artists, about their work. You know, like I said, that their work doesn't get forgotten, and to make sure that, you know, the next generation of young people and young artists have a space that they can come to and learn about, you know, artists maybe who aren't being included in the curriculum. I'm looking to find out who did the bust statue of Marcus Garvey, which is currently at Willesden Library and Marcus Garvey Library. I don't know. I don't know. Yeah, I mean, the one that I included was by Horace Donovan, but I'm not sure about the one that's at the Marcus Garvey Library. Will you be sending an email out to the participants when you reopen next year? Yeah, Lucy? Yeah? Yeah. Yeah. Oh, I think you're on mute.
We'll be sending an email out to everybody, because everybody will be welcome to attend at the opening. We want to see everybody down there, make a big splash.
Pearl Alcock exhibition. Yeah, I know that there is some Pearl Alcock work included in the archive. I haven't found it as of yet, but I know that that there is some there. As I said, it's just like I think I've gone through, you know, less than a third of what's actually there. So I know that there will be far more artists that I just didn't include.
We are hoping to bring the Pearl Alcock collection that is with the Whitworth Gallery to 198 in the winter of 2021-22, I think, for a big retrospective of Pearl to come back to the road where she lived.
Okay, if there are no more questions, maybe we can end it there. On the 17th of September, we are doing one, Brixton Library, and Pearl is regarded as a local hero. Okay, yeah, so if you look in the chat, then you can see another event that you can book on the 17th of September with the Brixton Society. Thank you for joining us today. Yeah, and I hope that you all come to the space when it reopens and come and have a visit at the study room. Yeah, thank you very much.
Thank you.